So I would like to thank you for joining me for my third iteration of my PowerPoint presentation. Uh, this is probably one of my favorites, um, and it is entitled The Root, meaning the root cause of the problem of man. Um, this is one of my favorite political cartoons. Um, I don't know who actually made this, who I can uh, attribute it to or give credit to, but ever since I first saw it, I was like, yeah, this is absolutely hilarious. Because it's true, right? Who wants change? Everybody puts their hands up. Why? Because everybody can see a problem. Everybody can see if this was removed, or if this was changed, or if this was improved, things would be better. So everybody wants change. Everybody wants to paint. But who wants to change? Well, all the hands go down. And the thing is, it's so funny if you think change can come with you not changing with it. It's kind of this schizophrenic insanity of this planet. We want change, but no one wants to change. And of course, who wants to lead the change? Well, people not only have their hands down, but they scatter. And we will come back to this, but this is uh, where I like to kick off the root, the root cause of humans' problems. Uh, but we'll come back to this again. All right, this is a illustration, a painting of Saint Peter, or not Peter. Excuse me, it's Saint Patrick. Two very different people. Uh, I prefer Patrick to Peter for sure. Anyway, so there is a myth or a legend of Saint Patrick that he expelled all the snakes in Ireland. Apparently, I've never been there, so I can't verify it. But if you're from Ireland or have been, apparently there are no snakes there. And the urban legend, the myth is because Saint Patrick banished them, which leads us nicely to my next slide, the problem of finding the solution. Well, we have two options here, two basic options. Whenever there is a problem that we see, how do we address it? Well, we can address the environment. We can address the environment itself. We can change the environment, the physical environment, the landscape, whatever. Or we can change our innards. We can change our psychology. We can change the fact that we see a problem at all. Um, in general, people are always going to want the St. Patrick figure, the sort of Superman, to come in, swoop in, and magically clean it up for us, right? If the problem is, I forget what the phobia, the scientific term for phobia of snakes is, but if that is what you have, you're always going to want a St. Patrick, um, rather than to simply eliminate your fear. You're always going to reach for the St. Patrick first, rather than the shrink or the psychologist, the psychology to heal yourself to see a snake as a problem. Um, one of these solutions is final, and the other is not. the one that we want, the one that people always grasp onto first, is not the final solution because you may have banished all the snakes from Ireland, but that doesn't mean you've banished all snakes from the planet or the world or from existence, right? There's still snakes there. They could be hiding under your rug. They can be hiding underground in your closet, around the corner. There could be a snake. Oh my gosh. So you're always going to be fearful if the way you approach the problem environmentally, if you try to change your environment, there's going to be no end to changing the environment because there's always a possibility of a snake being somewhere, right? Or whatever the problem is. And even if you eliminate all snakes, right, that doesn't mean that evolution doesn't produce another snake. They could still come back. Uh, but people can only see what they see, right? And unfortunately, that is the option that people pick every single time. Just like with Saint Patrick, people want a Jesus figure. They're expecting there's a bunch of Christians, billions of Christians who think, oh, Jesus is going to come, flying on a cloud one day, and he's going to just wipe all the world's problems away. The Jews think the Mashiach is going to do the same, and Muslims think the Mahdi is going to do the same. They are all reaching for a Superman to solve their problems. And unfortunately, spoiler alert, if you're a part of any of these three groups, or the group in general, as I just described, the group that likes to solve problems by changing the environment, you're going to be waiting a long time because that Superman figure simply does not exist. Although there are a lot of fake Superman figures that will promise you to solve all your problems uh, easily, but we'll get to that. Few people are wise enough to bother to consider to see which solution is permanent and comprehensive, as I said. They're going to go for the easy option. Oh, this one sounds nice. And I don't have to do anything because I don't have to change. Superman is going to do it for me. So, as I said, they're always going to pick solve the environment, solve the environment by changing the environment rather than the psychological solution. Oh, there it is. If you have ophidiophobia, fear of snakes, and St. Patrick's solution was offered, would you or would you not be distracted or tricked? It is too tempting. People, oof, oh my God. Every single person I've come in contact with, virtually every single one, would always pick St. Patrick. St. Patrick, save me. Save me from my fear. Again, rather than the shrink or the psychological science that could actually be a final end to your fear, but people just don't see it. And I've always been able to see it. All things come full circle. Eventually, you will have the chance to realize the consequence of your actions so that you can make better choices. If you pick the St. Patrick option, then you will eventually realize that it's not a solution. It's a band aid. It's sort of sweeping things under the rug, but the things are still under the rug that you swept under. And eventually, there's going to come a point, a rude awakening, where you have to realize, oh, those things that I swept under the rug are still there. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do now? And a lot of people just pick the same option over and over, but that's fine. That's just what people want to do. And if they want to keep this thing going and keep um, making a mistake, well, it's not really a mistake. It's just there we are people are extending the we're pushing the actual answer further and further back, rather than actually doing anything productive. All right, political demagogues. So here we have Hitler, who's perhaps the most famous of all political demagogues, and he was Saint Patrick for people. He was the solution. We have to round these people up. We have to change the world by changing people, by changing our environment, right? He never said be reflective. He never said change your psychology, right? Your psychology is fine. Your psychology is perfect. You don't need to change. You are not the problem. It's these other people that are the problem. It's the environment that's the problem. And so, again and again and again. And if you are a Trump supporter, if you are generally any and every political activist, politically involved person is attracted to that, is attracted to you don't have to change. It's these other people that need to change. And that is devastating because that will attract Hitler and all Hitler-esque politicians, which you can find no end to them in on this planet even now in 2025. Virtually everyone is Hitler-esque, if you will. And I contrast that with John Kennedy, um, who said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." Again, he was one of the very rare, and I'm not saying that he was like this amazing guy, because he probably wasn't cheating on his wife and whatnot. But let's leave that alone. um, he at least provided that reflective that is so incredibly rare. Uh, very few politicians do this because it doesn't earn them any political points. It's not the popular thing to say that we're not the solution. You're the solution. You do it. You do the work. It's not us, it's you. All right. The goat goat. What is the goat? Goat stands for greatest of all time. So what is the greatest of all time? Goat. Again, going along the lines of what I just explained, it is the scapegoat. Those of you who got that right, you win a prize. It's called a pat on the back. Um, yeah, we love the scapegoat. Again, for Hitler, it was the Jews and the other people. For Republicans, it's the Democrats. For Democrats, it's the Republicans. For conservatives, it's the liberals. For liberals, it's conservatives. And round we go, pointing the finger at absolutely everything except ourselves, right? This is what humans just love to do. We love scapegoats. They're our favorite animal, um, by far. Move over dogs. We have the goats. Um, this comes from Freud, of course, the famous iceberg. We are only semi-conscious, every single one of us. Most of our mind is underneath the water, meaning it's unconscious, meaning we can't see most of what's underneath our mind. Um, and Freud not only came up with that concept, but he came up with all of these other psychological concepts. Um, Oh my gosh, I don't see it here. Well, displacement, repression, rationalization, denial, sublimation, reaction formation. I would encourage people to look it up. All these things. Um, oh, there we go. That's the main one. What all the other ones really stem from is projection. And what is projection? Psychological projection, Freudian projection. That is when you see a problem with someone else. It's actually going back to Jesus when he said, "Why be concerned with the twig in your brother's eye when you have a log in your own?" That psychological projection. We always like to see problems with other people. We don't like to see our own problems. And so when do this myself, when I psychologically project and see a problem in somebody else, say, oh, look at that person who's doing that thing. I always sort of, well, not always, usually, I usually can catch myself and say, I'm seeing this problem in this other person, but perhaps I have that same thing inside myself. So I always project, and then I usually can catch myself and then say, well, maybe I should reflect here and see if I have the same problem. And catching myself, oh my gosh, I've caught myself many times, and I've been able to expose a lot of my own demons. Um, So I'm not saying projection is wrong. It can be right. Just like I said, I used it as a tool to circle back to myself. So, and you can do the same thing. Maybe you could catch yourself. But projection itself, this idea of seeing a problem in someone when you're really just reacting to yourself, you're reacting to your own demon. But your demon is trying to cover itself up by blaming the other person. Focus all of your attention on the other person. Don't focus any on me. Because if you focus on me, then you can find me and you'll expose me. All right. Going back to the scapegoat. Who was the very, very, very first person to point the finger? His name was Adam. And there's a lot more that I want to say with the Bible and Eden and the Eden story itself, which, quite frankly, uh, it is. Um, there's so much to say. It's like there's no end of things that I can say. But the Adam character, he was the one who kicked it off. A lot of people like to blame Eve, but it's really Adam. But that's a whole nother. I'm not gonna get ahead of myself. Adam is the first one to point the finger. He blamed his wife, right? The woman you put here with me, she gave me some fruit from the tree and I ate it. He bobbed and he weaved. God approached him, said, "Hey, what's up? Why'd you do this?" And instead of taking accountability, he blamed someone else. He projected out. Psychological projection. Okay. Um, so that's the first finger. Who's the second? Well, Eve. Eve followed her husband, and she said, "Well, I might as well keep going. Let's go on this vector, this line." And when God turned to the woman, the woman was like, don't blame me. Don't blame me. It was the serpent. It's the serpent's fault. It's all the serpent's fault. The serpent was the one who tricked me." But unfortunately, Eve was not reflective in this moment. Eve did not realize it takes two to tango. Yes, you were tricked. Correct. But it takes two to tango. In order for you to be tricked, you have to be silly enough to be tricked. You have to be silly enough to accept the trick, which means you have to take some accountability. But she wasn't willing to do that. She took that responsibility, that accountability, and she passed it on. Um, and I mean, it's understandable because literally her husband just did it to her. So she could only do what she knew. That's what she knew. Blame other people. So she blamed the serpent, just like her husband blamed her. And what is that? That's the blind leading the blind. Adam is the first blind, and Eve is the second blind. And, you know, all the 8.2 billion odd people on this planet, you can add them to that whole blind uh, line. Um, Not really all of them, but we've all done this. We've all done this at some point. Blamed somebody else. Now, I wanted to emphasize why the serpent didn't blame anyone. After Eve blamed the serpent, God turned to the serpent and sort of cursed the serpent. But you never hear any reply from the serpent, like, "Hey, wait, why are you, why are you coming after me? They were the ones stupid enough they didn't have to believe me." There's many things that the serpent could have said, but why didn't the serpent blame Adam and Eve or anyone else, circumstance or what have you? He could have said, "Hey, this is my nature. I'm supposed to trick people and be crafty. I'm the craftiest, the most, the craftiest creature. I'm supposed to do these sorts of things." Why didn't the serpent respond? Well, Alan Watts had the wisdom to know the serpent didn't make an excuse. He probably winked. The serpent didn't make any excuses because the serpent didn't need to make any excuses. The serpent was too busy patting himself on the back. He needed them not only to choose to eat the fruit. That was the first trick. That was his first goal. But he got a huge bonus. When Eve blamed the serpent, he said, "Yeah, thank you. That's exactly what I wanted you to do. Thank you so much. It's perfect." And it's so tempting. It's so tempting for us to blame the serpent, to blame the devil for all of our problems. My mother incessantly would blame, "Oh, the devil. The devil's lie. The devil did this. The devil did that. The devil's to blame," over and over and over. Um, and that's what the devil wants you to do. The devil wants you to blame it. Because every time you blame it, you give it life. You give it a platform. You give it a stage to exist. All right, Dr. Caligari. Um, this is an old silent film. I remember watching it in my film class, and it really kind of changed my life because it was the first plot twist, and I did not expect the plot twist, but it was quite a good plot twist. Um, we think that Dr. Caligari is this sick, wizard, evil doctor, evil scientist, mad scientist that's trying to, you know, fuck with people basically, fuck them up. And then the main character is this, oh, poor innocent bystander. Come to find out, the opposite is true, or the reverse is true. Dr. Caligari is actually trying to help, genuinely trying to help and trying to heal, whereas the main protagonist is actually the one who is sick, who is mad. And the great thing about this is that um, I have a friend of mine who is really interested in all of these like sort of gory, um, creepy horror, whether it's a film or a video game. He encouraged me to play Silent Hill, which was excellent, by the way. It was such a good game. And I was like, why are you so interested in all these like scary movies and scary things? And he was like, I just think you can find the truth in them. And he's right. And the Dr. Caligari film is a perfect, it's one of the first, it's the first in many ways, um, examples of psychological projection. Again, the mirror that we are missing, the opportunity to be reflective and to say, maybe it's not the world, maybe it's myself. Well, what is our greatest fear? What do we fear the most? Well, I have number three, death. You probably would have expected number one to be death, but in fact, it is number three. What could possibly be more scary than death? Well, public speaking, of course. This is halfway a joke and halfway not. Um, so don't read too much into that. But our greatest fear is the mirror. Going along this whole entire presentation. What is the mirror? Maybe we missed a spot. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the problem. Maybe the problem is inside. Maybe I have a log in my eye. And yet I'm, worried about a speck or a twig in someone else's. All right. Kali and Durgama. Um, these are Hindu gods, and not to be too disrespectful to that religion. Um, I'm not getting into the theology of either god here or in Hinduism at all, but I'm using these two examples to show an uh, an important lesson here. Well, you could say Kali and Durga Ma are the same, could say, and apparently they're two iterations of the same god. Apparently, but what I want to use the two to explain now is for those people who hide, people who lie, people who are dishonest, the least reflective people, the people who are always projecting out. The problem is outside me. The problem is not internal, it's external. Um, I call them roaches. I call them rats. I call them ninjas. I call them shadows. Why? Because they are afraid of the light. Now, if you are afraid of light, say you have a big secret, you don't want anybody to find out. Maybe you're the head of a, a mega church, but you're secretly gay. And I remember as someone who has had sex with men before, um, being terrified of being gay or and being wrong in God's eyes. And I remember watching this guy who was the head of a mega church on interview interviewing being interviewed by Barbara Walters, and she was like, "Well, did Jesus, heal you? Did Jesus save you?" And he was like, "Yeah, I used to be a drunk. I used to be an alcoholic, and then Jesus came into my life, and suddenly I never had another desire to pick up another glass." Um, a little short time later, I saw the same guy. I'm blanking on the name right now, but I saw the same guy on Fox News, and he's talking to reporters about, oh, the gay prostitute that I encountered who gave me the drugs. Oh, I threw the drugs away, and I did this and I did that. And I was like, what? Like, this is the guy that I just saw being interviewed by Barbara Walters and saying that Jesus saved his life and healed him, and he had no more evil inclinations anymore. Wow. Um, this guy eventually left that church, but then he started like another church, and then he got in trouble again and started another church. It's just like it's crazy how many times people can chase their tail before they finally become reflective. But anyway, I say all that to say whatever your big secret is, it doesn't have to be that you're gay. It could be anything. Maybe you lied on your taxes. Maybe you cheated on your wife. Maybe you know, killed somebody or something. I don't know. It could be anything. Whatever thing you're trying to hide is, if you have that spirit of hiding, which is the same spirit that serpents, rats, roaches, shadows, and devils have, and ninjas, they have to hide. Why? Because the light will expose them. And so this is why people are told, if they're dying or about to die, walk into the light. Don't forget to walk into the light. Because indeed, when we die, not if, when, right? When we die, just like in that movie Ghost, there's going to be the light for each and every one of us. And we have the option, you're not forced, we have the option. Do you want to walk into that light or do you not? And the people who have skeletons in their closet, the people who have the buried demons, in their backyard, so to speak, they will always be fearful of walking into the light because they do not want to be exposed, even though God knows everything anyway. He already knows all of your deepest, darkest secrets. So, but my point is, in using Kali and Durga, if you are one of those who like to hide and keep the skeletons nice and neatly packed away, and thinking you can hide from God, if you can hide from people, if you're of that ilk, the light will always appear as Kali to you. It will always appear as this terrifying thing, the thing that you should run away from. First thing, turn away, run the exact opposite way. And how unfortunate, because you just missed your opportunity to better yourself and to heal yourself. The thing that terrifies you is actually the thing that can help you. Um, those who are honest, those who walk in transparency, honesty, and the light and truth of God, as I like to call it, when they see the light, they're going to see Durga Ma. They're going to see that someone more approachable. Maybe not with the lions and the tigers and the bears, uh, but they're going to see something much more approachable, right? They're going to see something that they're not terrified of. I'm not terrified of either, by the way, because there's nothing to be terrified of. When you are honest and you walk in the light and truth of God, you don't have fear of death or being exposed or anything. Um, you just, the light is, it's all good in the light. All right, crabs in a barrel. Um, really quick slide here. I just wanted to say that people uh, on this planet are like crabs in a barrel. We have to trap each other, and we don't like to see anyone be free. Um, and the moment we see someone potentially escaping from this collective prison, so to speak, we like to drag them down. Oh, you're getting way too far ahead. Come back down to our level where it's comfortable because we want to continue to believe that we're trapped. And how can we believe that we're trapped if you free yourself? So let's drag you down with us and keep this thing going. Let's start another church, even though we've been exposed, and pretend as though nothing happened. And I don't have any skeletons in my closet, right? That's crabs in a barrel, and we are all right now. Well, most people are stuck. I'm getting out of the barrel. I don't know about you. And so going back to the fall, um, the Eden story is psychological. It is not a physical story. It is not a historical story. I mean, it's historical in the sense that it historically explains human psychology, but it's not an and then historical linear story. It is a psychological story. It is symbolic, and it being a psychological story makes it most universal, right? Because it applies to everybody. It can explain all of human psychology. Paradise is a state of mind to represent some notches or degrees below heaven. Paradise is not heaven. That's really um, all I want to say there. But paradise is an ideal state. It's not heaven, though. It's not quite heaven. And we'll get to that in another video. Adam and Eve, the trees, the fruit, the serpent, all symbolic, not literal. The story shows that we reap what we sow. Now, if scapegoating and denying responsibility, again, what I call pointing the finger, creating the scapegoat, is what we sow, what fruit are we going to reap from that? Remember when I said the first trick of the serpent was to get us to eat the fruit, but the main goal of the serpent was not just to get us to eat the fruit, but to get us to blame it, to make it out to be the scapegoat. We reap what we sow. And so, since Adam and Eve effectively blamed the serpent for all of their problems, if Adam and Eve said, you know what, God, my bad. We know we weren't supposed to do it. We did it anyway. And, we're sorry. Please help us out. God would have helped us out. But since we blamed the serpent, since Eve blamed the serpent, and Adam blamed Eve, the only response that God could have given us was like, okay, if you think it's the serpent's problem, I have to now release the serpent to you. And now the serpent has a stage, a presence in this world with us, all because we reap what we sow. And that is reaping what we sow, reaping the consequence of scapegoating. That is the big answer. That is the fall. If the serpent was not implicated, if he was not blamed, he, they, she, whatever, was not blamed in the Adam and Eve story, that would have meant that Adam and Eve were ready to take responsibility. And if you're ready to take responsibility for yourself, that is when God can step in and help you. If you are a victim of circumstance, if you're a victim of the devil or anything external to you, you got to learn, first of all, that you're not a victim, that it is you. It is self induced, all of your problems. All right, going again along the lines of the scapegoat. All the problems that we see in the world, um, we like to blame the church. We like to blame academia and the intellectuals. We like to blame the corporations. We like to blame the government. We like to blame the moneymakers, right? The financial institutions. And we like to blame Hollywood. But as I've said this entire video, they are not the problem. They are not the problem. So, full circle moment. Who wants change? Well, anyone who wants the world to be a better place will want change. Again, you can't have change unless you change with the change. So you can't be into the preservatives. If you are clinging, if you want to preserve, if you want to hold on to what you have, you will lose what you have and then some. You either have to evolve or you lose what you have. You're either evolving or devolving. And every conservative, and I don't mean philosophically here, but I'm just saying if you want things to stay the same, then you are always choosing the devolve option, the devolve choice. In order for things to improve, they have to change. They have to evolve. And holding on to it will never get you there. How could it? How could preserving things evolve things? Just it doesn't work like that. Who wants to change? Anyone who wants the world to be a better place. You can't point the finger anymore if you want to change, because you can't be reflective if you're pointing the finger. You have to change yourself, which means you have to be reflective. That is how you change, and that is how you introduce change into the world. Who wants to lead the change? Anyone who wants the world to be a better place. Now, this one is a little tricky because we have a misconception about leading, because we have a dualistic understanding of leading. We think you are either a leader or a follower, and this is devastating. And I've seen it so many places and so many instances where people say, "We need more leaders. We need more leaders." No, we don't need more leaders in the sense that we need more people to follow the leaders, because it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's just going around in a circle over and over and over. What is a true leader? A true leader is a non-dualistic leader, meaning they have no followers. It's not a dualistic thing. It's not a meaningless thing. um, which means what? That means you lead yourself and you follow yourself. It is all about the individual here. Abraham Maslow created the hierarchy of needs, and at the very top of that pyramid is this thing called self actualization. You can be self actualized if you are reflective enough in yourself. Um, and that is how you lead. When you are self actualized, or the more self actualized you become, the more reflective you are, the more you can become an example for someone. And that is how you lead. That is what Jesus did. Jesus never wanted to be a leader with a flock of followers. He never wanted that. He wanted to be an example. And that's it. He never wanted followers. He's not interested in followers. God is not interested in followers. God wants self actualized beings, people who can lead themselves. Okay. And that is true leadership, so to speak. And that concludes my presentation. I hope you learned something from this. And if not, then that's great too. See you next time.